and welcome back to Talking Europe from the European Parliament here in Brussels. Are EU leaders tired of Russia's war in Ukraine? Are they ready to seek a way out? That was the message from Italy's Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, during a phone call in September with Russian comedians who posed as an African Union official. Now, Meloni's office later said it regretted that she had been tricked by pranksters. But the damage may have been done because Meloni's remarks seem to confirm what some already suspected, that Europe's pledge to support Ukraine for, quote, as long as it takes in its war against Russia, is being tested by Kyiv's slow-going counteroffensive and a new horrific war in the Middle East that's distracting attention. Now, Gaza has left Ukraine competing for money, for military supplies, and for attention from the West. And some are asking right now whether Ukraine is slipping down Europe's priority list. And my guests today are two European lawmakers, MEPs. On my right, Petras Ostravicius. Exactly. You are a Lithuanian MEP from the Liberal Party.
That's right.
From the Liberal Party. And on my left is Ivan Stefanic. Ivan, you're a Slovak MEP from the European People's Party. Basically, you're both here to try to answer my first question. I just told you those remarks from Italy's Prime Minister saying Europe's tired of Ukraine, everyone's looking for the exit. I want to start with you, Ivan Stefanic. When you hear those words, do you agree with them? Do you think she's just playing for the political stage?
First of all, if something takes more than 1.5 years, it's quite normal that there is some kind of fatigue. I do understand it from a human perspective. On the other side, we have to understand what is really European priority. And we have to support Ukraine because for Europe it is really existential issue. It is not only moral and economical, but it is existential issues. And in last couple of days, there were 3 events which was quite clear steps that there is no fatigue, but we have to support Ukraine even more.
Right.
First one was the conclusion from European summit. Second issue was basically the statement from European Parliament saying that we have to even strengthen our sanctions policy against Russia. And the third one was the statement from Madam President Ursula von der Leyen saying that she proposed to open accession talks. Very clear signals that our priority is Ukraine.
It all sounds very good when you say it to me, and reading it on paper as well. But Petras Ostravicius, your neighbor, you're from Lithuania, but one of your neighbors, the president of Latvia, recently said the West doesn't seem to really get it. If the West stops supplying Ukraine with ammunition and arms, it will open the door for Russia to invade other countries. Is that a message that you're telling your European colleagues here? Do you agree with that, first of all?
I think it corresponds to reality very much, since it's not just Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine. No, I mean, Russia is testing the Western system as such.
The whole system.
A whole system, indeed. I mean, their target is Ukraine in between on the way, I mean, to target the Western system. But because, I mean, geographically, Ukraine is physically in between. But I think we should not overfool ourselves sending a wrong message that it's about Ukraine, it's about, single countries or, I mean, a political system which Russia doesn't like to be in Ukraine. No. Russian regime doesn't like to be and to see the democratic, open society living, under absolutely different rules. So that's why, if the West makes a strategic decision to withdraw its support for Ukraine, or even to reduce, because, I mean, for me, it equals completely.
Right.
I think it would be kind of a fatal mistake, which I would compare probably with the World War II. If, European allies are not supported by US increasingly more, would we celebrate a victory against Nazism in Western Europe?
And it's interesting you say that because there was recently a comment from one of Volodymyr Zelensky, Ukrainian president, one of his top advisors, Andriy Yermak. Yep. And I just want to read it for our viewers. We'll put it up on the screen. But he basically said, think for a moment, if Britain in 1939 had felt tired of Poland, or if the US felt tired of Britain, would there be such a thing as Poland today? Britain or Europe, as we see it now? We could not afford fatigue then or now. I take it, Ivan Stefanich, that you would fully agree with Andriy Yermak's comment.
Absolutely, I fully agree. As I said before, this is an existential issue for Europe. We have to understand that Russian system is the threat for Europe. A Russian system puts us, all the European countries, as the enemies. So they fight not only against Ukraine, they fight against the European Union as itself. And Ukrainians, they not only protect its territory, they really protect the whole Europe.
You two are both, correct me if I'm wrong, you're both members to varying degrees of the EU delegation to Ukraine Parliamentary Affairs. So you have to deal with these issues pretty close up. When you then go before your European colleagues today and they say, oh, what's happening in that delegation, Petras Ostrovicius, what do you tell them? What's the message you're telling them? And what are you hearing back from your colleagues?
Well, I mean, look, I mean, there is always a kind of tendency to simplify things. And politicians, you know, they are not different from average men on the street in this regard. And, you know, if every day already for 20 months we hear about war in Ukraine and we think that it's only about a war. But, you know, normal life, a civil life goes on in Ukraine.
Right.
Ukraine is in the process of reforms. And to explain to my colleagues, I mean, how the Ukrainian parliament in these circumstances still able to approve laws which are in line with the EU harmonization.
They're still reforming. They're still trying to pass reforms.
Exactly. And, you know, people on the streets in Kyiv, in eastern or western parts of Ukraine, they live life, they survive. Yeah. And they are still very patriotic. They want, I mean, to have Ukraine among the like-minded countries in the West. I mean, they want to be European. Right. They want to get rid of this war of aggression. They want to come back to some normality, a new normality. To explain to my colleagues, I mean, you know, sometimes it takes time.
It takes some time right now. And let me ask you, I mean, Ivan Stefanich, I'm not saying you, but you are from a country that has a new prime minister who is said to be anti-Ukraine. He campaigned on not letting another bullet, as he put it, be delivered to Ukraine, cutting military aid. Is it hard representing Slovakia, being a Slovak representative in the European Parliament, when the leader of your country right now is known for taking a quite anti-Ukrainian stance?
I'm always very proud of representing my country and representing my ideas, which are very pro-Ukrainian. I'm absolutely sure that majority of Slovaks are pro-Ukrainian. Many Slovak citizens welcome Ukrainian refugees, and they welcome them very warmly. They help, many NGOs help also to Ukrainian refugees. But unfortunately, you are right that there is a change in terms of Slovak government and a change in terms of rhetoric of Prime Minister. But
rhetoric.
Rhetoric. Yeah. But I have to point out the fact that he also signed the conclusions from last European summit where he attended. And in these conclusions, there was very clearly stated that we have to strengthen help to Ukraine, including military help. And also we have to, for example, strengthen our sanctions policy.
So that goes against
Russia.
That goes against his campaign pledge.
Exactly. That's what I would like to explain, that one side it is his rhetoric, on the other side the action is quite different. So my hope is that Slovak foreign policy will not change. And even recent foreign ministry meetings and or meetings for including defense ministries proved that Slovak position continues.
Let me ask both of you, and I'll show our viewers something as well. The Atlantic magazine, published out of the US, recently had a story by a journalist named Ann Applebaum in which the title was "The West Must Defeat Russia." And the argument was that Putin, sitting in Moscow right now, is counting on Ukraine morale going down and Western support weakening. He says it's spreading, and his spokesperson said as much as also in the past few days. Is Putin making the wrong bet here if he thinks the West's the will is going to weaken with Ukraine?
You know, I look at this war as a marathon. And who will survive this marathon? Who will come first? I think we have a great chance, I mean, as Western democratic communities, supporting our partners like Ukraine, like Moldova, and hopefully Georgia, I mean, coming up, not to speak about Western Balkan countries, to overcome all the difficulties, to solve all uncertainties which still follow us. I mean, some politicians are spreading news of, you know, kind of non-support, splitting from the Western alliance kind of line. But, you know, I think we have no chance for failure. If we fail,
you can't afford to fail, perhaps.
Exactly,
you can't afford to fail.
Yeah, if we fail in Ukraine, if we back sides, I mean, from support of Ukraine, look, I mean, it will be next country. And how about our moral principles? How about our values we are so good to preach others? So now it's a testing ground. It's a testing ground for our philosophy of life.
And we are out of time, and we're going to have to end on that testing ground. In one word, I just want you both to say, if the U.S. were to stop giving military aid to Ukraine, not a far-fetched possibility, say if Donald Trump's elected next year, could Europe step in? One word, two words.
It would be a big challenge. I hope we will avoid this situation since Americans are pro-democracy.
Last word, Ivan Stefanovich.
It will be very difficult because Europe basically underestimated its own defense. We do not have enough military equipment. What we have financial support, which we provided to Ukraine, and we will. So far, we have provided more than 80 billion euro, and recently we approved next 50 billion euro package.
The money has to come from somewhere. Where will it come from? Will Europe have the will? We're going to have to get these guests back together, perhaps 6 months from now, and see if the will is still there in Europe. Cold winter months ahead in Ukraine, months of uncertainty. Thanks for watching Talking Europe here on France 24.